Hey everyone, if you have an elk tag this season or are helping a friend out by calling for them, then you need to go check out and order these new custom BowhuntingAZ elk calls. These custom reeds are by the brand we all know and trust, Native by Carlton. Each call showcases the custom BowhuntingAZ logo as well as the new Elk Series logo. Their Rip It series of calls bring quality sound and pure domination to the playing field. Offered at only $11 each, you couldn't ask for a better offer. Order yours today while supplies last. There is a limited quantity, so don't wait. www.bowhuntingaz.com. Hey guys, head on over to Facebook and search for the group BowhuntingAZ. That's the group, not the Facebook page itself. Answer a couple simple questions and hit join. I created this group in hopes of generating online mentorship for new and upcoming hunters. This is a place where there are no stupid questions. We want to help you grow and mature in your hunting journey. We're not giving out locations and we're not giving out honey holes, but my goal is to allow for education without barriers or fear of ridicule for simply not knowing. So jump on in and join the group. I'll see you there. Hunting might have its seasons, but prepping for it is year-round. The mountain commands our best effort and sacrifice. Reach your peak performance with Dark Mountain supplements. Their quality proteins, recovery, and Kodiak pre-workout are a surefire way to dominate in the gym and in the woods. Use promo code GIVEITASHOT30 and accelerate your journey to defeating your Dark Mountain. Backwoods Grind. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge coffee nut. I like my coffee strong and a solid flavor to back it up. The guys over at Backwoods Grind have it going on. I get my coffee shipped every 2 weeks to me automatically, and you can choose whole bean or different variations of ground. You can opt for a one-time purchase, bi-weekly, or monthly basis. Backwoods Grind is a coffee that goes beyond the mug. From traditions to memories and long-lasting relationships, these are all built upon the passion brought to you by their blends, specifically roasted for hunters and outdoorsmen alike. Be sure to check out their 3 newly released blends, Camp House, Fireside, and Nightcap. Visit backwoodsgrind.com and use code BAZ10 to get 10% off your order. I'd also like to thank Racks. Racks is hands down the coolest bow hangers on the market. Display your bow with pride in your house, your garage, or anywhere you'd like. They carry most major bow brands while also offering a custom service if you have an idea or logo of your own that you'd like to make into a bow hanger. Use them to display your traditional bow, compound bow, or crossbow. They also work great for hanging your hunting gear, bags, or hats. Not to mention, the designs look just plain awesome all by themselves. A Racks hanger makes for a great gift for that special hunter in your life. Go to racksinc.com. That's RAXXINC.com to see some of the available designs or contact Racks to discuss a custom hanger of your own. If you'd like to see how sick their custom hangers are, go check out my Instagram feed. For listeners of the BowhuntingAZ podcast, use the promo code PODCAST and get 15% off your order. Racks. Show off your passion. Open Country Optics. Open Country Optics is your #1 online source for optics and optics rentals. With quality Swarovski glass before your eyes, Open Country Optics brings the game closer. Rentals include a tripod, binos, and you can even add on a phone scope or foldable chair to glass from. All of the optics arrive in a durable Pelican case with insulated foam. You won't find any other company who provides you an all-inclusive package like Open Country Optics. Visit them today at opencountryoptics.com. Use promo code BHAZ and get 5% off rentals or $50 off any optics purchase. Open Country Optics, bringing the game closer. Scent Assassin. Scent Assassin, the new leader in scent elimination. Scent Assassin manufactures the latest technology in scent elimination spray, body wash, and laundry detergent. Forget the wind, hunt anywhere, anytime. Check out their full product line at scentassassin.com. Use promo code BowhuntingAZ for 20% off your order. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the BowhuntingAZ podcast. In this episode today, I'm speaking with Ralph Ramos of Ramos Hunts and Video Production. Today we're going to do a deep dive into the language of elk, how to call, what you're saying, and how to approach different scenarios that you'll probably encounter here in Arizona and just across the West. So let's jump on into today's episode. Hey Ralph, how's it going? I want to thank you so much for joining the BowhuntingAZ podcast today. I really appreciate your time and really excited to just sit down here with you and just pretty much dissect elk language 101 pretty much. So yeah, thank you for joining us and just go ahead and introduce yourself.
You bet. Hey, Stephen, thanks for having me today to share some of my experiences. Stephen, I'm a middle school principal, and I've been hunting elk now, since I was in high school. And one of my things is when I guide elk hunters is that I have to hurry up and get back to school. So my goal is to get out there, get after it. We like to harvest at least one bull every 2 days, but normally I have maybe a 2 to 3 day weekend, and we got to capitalize with all the elk language that we can throw at them, see what's going on with weather, with, of course, the elements, the terrain, the habitat, anything that's going on to make it happen, So, I've gotten to get real creative to sometimes induce the elk to give up their location, try to understand their language, what they're saying, what they're doing, and learn and grow. Gosh, this has been a lifetime commitment to elk hunting for me, and it's been an exciting one. And I just want to share with people. I am an educator, and I want to share every secret that I have because it's so hard to find or even to draw an elk tag. So I like to share and give everybody the tools that have worked for me and try to turn it into a success out in the field for everyone. But Thanks for having me today, Stephen. I'm really excited, and let's get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I know everyone's time is cramped these days, and there's so many things that we can be doing with the every minute and every hour that we have. So again, thank you very much. So I want to break down, I'm hoping we could do a series of things because for those that didn't hear the elk seminar, I really recommend that you go back and listen to that. And basically what I'm hoping to do is I want to absorb and take all the knowledge that we can out of Mr. Ramos's brain, basically. And I want to dissect that, and I want us to be able to capitalize on it and just grow as elk hunters. We're so lucky to have people like him that are willing to share this information. And so I just want to make the most of it. And today it's just going to be a deep dive into the elk language. And so basically what I've done here is I've laid out the different types of calls, and if there's anything extra in there that I haven't included, please feel free to throw that in there. But basically what I want to do is we have the different types of elk sounds here and what they make. I've broke it down basically into cow versus bull. And I'm just going to throw them out there and one at a time. And if you would just be willing to expound on that and just let us know when we hear this sound, what does that mean exactly? And then I'll go later into how we can kind of diverge on and capitalize different sounds and things like that. So we'll just jump in. The first one is just a standard cow call, that typical, and if you have your calls there too, feel free to throw one out. Don't by any means hesitate.
Absolutely, boy. Elk are really versatile creatures, and they're always very vocal. Gosh, they throw out so many different sounds, and and it's one of the basic one is definitely your cow call. Just a simple mew. Hey, here I am. Here I am. And then normally a cow's hanging out with a calf, from the previous year, and they're a little bit more higher pitched, smaller. And the way I look at cow and a calf combination, Stephen, is your cow's always wanting to keep an eye on her little ones. It's just kind of like a mom going to the mall, but out in the wild, we have predators with wolves and coyotes and bears and lions, so you want to keep an eye on that little one. And what happens is they're always, hey, where are you? Where are you? And then the little ones, here I am, and that's what I try to imitate, even when I'm locating elk. Yeah, here I am. Okay, don't run off. Okay, just enjoying themselves out there. They're always, very vocal critters, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one thing to be wary of too, folks, when you're out there is if you are throwing out some of those calf mews, people have called in predators before, so be careful and you should always be aware anyways, but be aware of your surroundings, and if you're in bear territory, definitely still keep an eye out as well. Well, what about a cow and estrus? That's another sound that is, especially for people like me that have that rut tag, we're probably going to hear a lot of that. Can you dive into that for us and what that means?
Absolutely. And, again, elk are really vocal critters, and they show a lot of emotion as well. And during the rut, especially that, once the cows start coming into heat, and normally a cow will start trickling, the cows will start trickling into heat around September 1, that Labor Day weekend. One will come into heat and the bulls will start talking a little bit, bugling and whatnot. And then pretty much if the cow doesn't get bred in 20 days, she'll come in 20 to 23 days. She'll come into heat again. And of course, she does this estrus sound where she's wanting the bull to come to her. She's ready to be bred. And it sounds something like this. In fact, a native there in Arizona, Norm Pint, he's now with a good Lord, but he was the inventor of the hyper hot elk estrus call, and it sounds something like this. And basically, it's just real excited, real high pitched. I'm over here, I'm over here. I'm ready to be bred, letting that bull know. And a lot of times when that cow does that, that bull's going to respond either with a bugle, and I know we're going to talk about bugles here in a little bit, but then also the bull will make a glunking sound when he's coming into her, and it sounds something like this. And that's just a real excited bull. He's coming in, he makes that sound with his mouth, and it goes right along with that cow and estrus sound. I like to use different cow and estrus sounds. Of course, that Norm Pine call is a very high-pitched sound, and you also have some lower sounds, more of a deeper mew, and I'll demonstrate both of them for you. Here's the high-pitched cow and estrus sound. Super high pitch. Now here's a lower pitch. And it's no different than people. We all sound different. Some people have high-pitched, sounds where, others are real low-tone. Gosh, I have such a low-tone voice myself. So all these elk sound different, and that's a key thing. When you're out in the field, you've got to have different, multiple sounds. And if you look at my arsenal that I carry in the woods, I have a lot of different calls. In fact, I have a power pack now that has 6 calls wrapped into one, which includes your bugle tubes, your cow calls, and different sounds that you can produce out in the field. But did I answer your question on that with the estrus sound, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny. It's really funny because it's almost like in comparison to turkeys, it's just a big game version of turkeys. Like it sounds almost like that glunking or that sound that you made of the bull coming in is almost like a spitting and drumming and version for elk. And then the estrus is just that, some of those the kiki runs and other things that the turkeys do. And it's funny how it almost mimics in similarity. The next thing that we have is just the cow bark.
You bet. And that's a sound that I don't care to hear out in the woods.
Yeah.
It's an alarm bark, that goes off. And it goes something like this. And pretty much a bull or a cow, it doesn't really, I've seen bulls do it, cows do it as well. It's an alarm. Hey, something isn't right. I'm letting you know that I either smelled you or I saw movement in the field that does not look natural. There may be a wolf in the area. There may be a coyote. By all means, a human activity. She's warning everyone, her little one, the herd, letting them know that something isn't right. And most of the time when they do that, when they bark, they tend to trot at least 5 to 10 yards and then stop and maybe bark at you again and then continue doing it and then mosey their way out of there. A lot of times if they do wind you, of course, they're going to take off trotting away and then they're gone for good. But if they sense a little bit of motion, something like that, something's not right, that's when they start to bark. And I've had elk when they don't wind me, but they've seen something, up close. In fact, I got to share this experience. It's really cool. I've been hunting with hex suits, Stephen, now for about 4 years, really serious about the hex suit. And when I wear the hex suit, what it does is it keeps your electrical pulses from being picked up by animals. It's kind of like a microwave, has that film on the window that doesn't allow the microwaves come out of the microwave box anyway. But anyways, I use this hex suit religiously now because I've had such great experiences and encounters. And I've had elk, especially when I get into the rattling later on or I'm calling in an elk, whatever. I've had them come up to, 10, 15 yards. They see motion when I'm either moving, rattling or whatnot. And this bull will sometimes bark, but they don't bark and blow out and run. And that's what I'm getting at. They sense that something isn't right. Something is there, but I hear an elk either rattling, I hear a fight going on, and gosh, there's a human now with horns there wondering what's going on. So I've heard some barks before, but before I used to use the hex suit, I'd hear a bark and run, and of course, if they smell you now, they will run as well. But I hope that makes a little bit of sense there, Stephen, but that really makes me excited.
Yeah, absolutely. What about a cow chirp? Would you consider that the same thing as a cow bark, or would you consider a cow chirp something a little bit different? Because I understand bulls will do the chirp also.
Right. You know what? I haven't really experienced a whole lot with chirps. Normally chirps I hear with, from a calf or a cow, something like this. And I think it's just an excited, something's not normal, they're more excited, but I got to be honest with you, I don't think I dissected that close. I think I kind of focused more on the bulls, and that's kind of what I try to go in and gear up and close the gap on bulls bugling rather than chirps. But I don't know if that makes any sense for you there.
No, it definitely does. Yeah, and absolutely. And transitioning into that bugle realm, let's start talking about the bugles. The most common thing that we hear of is just a location bugle. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. And you know what? I think there's two things, and I'm not going to say that herd bulls don't chuckle. I think all bulls chuckle. But I know one thing, that when a bull is pushing his cows, he sounds something like this, and it's a long, extended, real high pitch. I'll try to imitate that for you. He doesn't have a chuckle in the end. And for those of you that haven't heard a chuckle sounds something like this. Just that's just a chuckle. Normally it comes right after a long extended bugle. It goes like this. I'm going to use this diaphragm here real quick.
Okay.
And I tell you what I like to see is, when I look at elk, number one is that when an elk's pushing cows, he has that long extended bugle, real high-pitched bugle, just kind of telling, move on, let's go, let's keep going. We got to go get maybe bedded up, on the north side, let's go find a bench, let's get to our bedding zone. On the other hand, bulls that are more solitude, looking for the cows, looking for the herd, those are the bulls that I think have that longer bull with that chuckle at the end. Okay, I think those are your satellite bulls that are searching for the herd. They want to move in, you know, and those are the ones that are, I think, a lot more vulnerable to be called in. When I hear one of those bulls, it's like, you know what, we're going to stand pretty good odds of sucking that bull in, getting them a good archery shot.
Yeah, absolutely. What about a roundup bugle? Can you kind of break that down for us?
A roundup bugle, you got me locked up there now. What in the heck is a roundup bugle? And maybe I can wrap my brain around that.
Sure. So my understanding of a roundup bugle is that it's a specific bugle that the bull uses to demand what his cows are going to do. Or a command bugle, I guess, would be another name for it.
You bet. Well, you know what? And I got to be honest with you. In the real elk woods, bulls are always rounding up their cows, especially when satellite bulls are trying to penetrate and steal his cows. And, you know, the life of a bull you know, from mid-September into mid-October is nothing but trying to breed his cows and keep his herd. And the other satellite bulls are always trying to, you know, steal them away. So the roundup bugle, I think that's just kind of when he gets really upset and tries to demand those cows to stay within this realm. Don't move off. Don't cow call. Don't make any sounds. I'm telling you, just the only one that's going to talk here is me. I want to hear what's going on. And it sounds something like this. Just. You know, he's excited. He doesn't want those cows to leave. You know, and to me, when he's ready to go and he wants to round them up and move them on, he'll start kicking them up like that. He'll get pretty aggressive with them.
Yeah, yeah. What about a lip ball?
A lip ball. Okay, well, you know what? I like to do that, obviously, with your lips. You kind of flutter them, you know, get this kind of sound right here. A lip balm, I think, is when the bull is excited. He's trying to show more emotion. A lot of times, I think the lip balm will be when the bull is with his cows, and he doesn't necessarily want to do a full blown, bugle. He wants to let those ladies know, oh, you know, I'm in charge here. Stay put, you know, don't run off here. I like to, when I'm normally cow calling and I'm trying to entice a bull to come into my calls, a lot of times I will not bugle at him. I'll just have my creative cow and calf combination going, maybe a little bit of a whine cow call, something like this. And then I'll do maybe a little bit of bowing, just to let them know that those cows are with the bull. Mm-hmm. The cows are with the bull, and I'm not just gonna let you know that here I am on bugle, because when a bull bugles, he's letting you know, hey, I'm right here, you know. But on the other hand, when we're calling in an elk, we're reciprocating everything in the natural world. When a bull bugles normally in the wild, the cows tend to go to him naturally. Mm-hmm. And what we're doing is we're reciprocating our method and our strategy. We produce cow call to let them know we're here. You know, these bulls are lovers or fighters that we're trying to call in. So I'm trying to figure out if he likes those cow calls and he's responding with bugles to me. I tell you what, I'll keep giving him those cow calls. And, you know, and I'll talk more, about the X zone and setting up. But right now, I'm exciting him with my cow calls. I keep doing my cow cap, whatever's exciting him and keeping him bugling. That's my goal as a caller, you know. And I know we can dive in and define, well, I'm the caller and you're the shooter. There's different roles. And then when you team up together, you can really make things happen. But I like to entice him with a cow call, cow call. He's a lover. He's responding. He's looking for cows. But on the other hand, he's bugling, demanding for me to go to him. So I like to play with him for, at least 10 minutes, and then I switch to that bow. I'll just let him know that there is a bull. That's why we're not going to you. Mm-hmm. We are going to stay right here because this bull's keeping us over here. Sounds again like this. Almost like a moan bugle as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's perfect too, because that was my next one, was groaning or, basically like a moan.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you do have that moaning and that groaning as well. One of the things that I like to use the moaning and the groaning more so is when I'm rattling and working my horns. I want to let them know that two bulls are over here tugging at each other. We're going into battle, or there's a bull that's raking a tree. He's raking it. He's popping that horn. And then he's also producing some moaning while he's doing that, showing emotion. That's the thing I think that you're going to find is your average callers will make the basic sounds. There's a basic cow call, calf combination. There's a basic bugle. There's bugles with chuckles. But I think what makes a difference, what's really helped me out, is that I try to show a little more emotion, more drive. I'm excited. Even when I use a diaphragm, you want to over-exaggerate your lips and how you move and how you talk, because that's what shows the emotion when you're in the elk. You've got to get into their head, so when I'm raking and popping those horns, I'll grab that tube and I'll just do some moaning. That's showing emotion right there. That's showing he's intimidated. He's angry. He's showing a lot of frustration. And man, he might want to come and challenge you. And a lot of times when you do that, these bulls just come on in. A lot of them are silent alligator bulls that sneak right on in. But emotion, whether you're moaning, whether you're bowling, whether you're bugling with chuckles. I try to just give it my all every time when I use my calls.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we'll do now is kind of transitioning into the calls and just basically understanding the types of calls and which that you're going to need for a hunt.
Okay. All right.
What types of calls are best for beginners? Because that's, I think, who's mostly going to listen to this, and they want to know where to start, get going in the field and everything for this year.
Perfect. You know what? And if you look at some of my videos, you're going to see I carry around several calls. Okay, but the very basic calls. I have a native call right here. It's a bite and blow call. You stick it in your mouth. There's nothing really hard about it. The thing is just get your call, practice it. It's producing a cow call. Learn how to just do that simple cow call. I think another simple call is like your hoochie mama. It's a Primo's call. And then they have the baby hoochie now as well. You just can talk to yourself back and forth, so there's another simple call that you can use. Definitely, if you can't have a diaphragm in your mouth, those are, three simple calls you can have. The other one are your reed calls, and that's what I was talking about earlier with Norm Pint, his hyper hot call. You can make a real high-pitched sound with that. Real simple. You basically, either use your lip. Some guys like using their lip. I like using my tooth right on top of that reed to put down the pressure that you want on that call. Real simple. And then you have, but what I recommend is a high-pitched and a low-pitched call. This other one here is a double reed call. It's a Primo's double. High pitch, low pitch. Definitely, I wouldn't leave the woods without that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now those are the cow calls that are simple, and definitely I like carrying at least, two different tones, the high, the low, when I'm hunting in the woods for cow calls. Now, here's the other cool thing is that most of your bugle tubes, now let's switch. Those are mainly cow calls that those produce, the cow and calf combinations. What I'm going to switch to now, Stephen, are your bugle tubes, okay? Mm-hmm. You have, your typical bugle tube. A lot of them are really large. They have these big old baffle tubes on them, and they sound, they have a lot of volume. They bring a lot of volume to, your bugle. And I tell you one thing, and strongly recommend to everyone who's listening is go in the woods with one large bugle tube and one small tube. You want to be able to sound like two different bulls, when you're out there, because as you get into some of my podcasts, I'm going to talk about arguing within yourself, trying to imitate the sounds of two different bulls to try to stimulate the bull, whether he's bedded or you're chasing him or whatever's going on with the elk. You want to sound like two bulls to stimulate them to come in towards you. But, here's a little small tube. It's a Rocky Mountain. Rocky Jacobson, has this call. Real simple. Just so, it's simple to blow into. Of course, I'm using my diaphragm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a flex tone bugle tube. Abe and Sons, Ralph Malini. He has a mouthpiece that goes with his. Most of these calls come with a mouthpiece on them. Okay, and I like to use those calls where you can snap them off or snap them on. That way, you sound different every time you use one. But here's here's an Abe and Sons bugle tube. And then you can pop that mouthpiece and pop it right off and make some cow calls with it as well. So don't be afraid to utilize your bugle tube and pop off those mouthpieces. The other thing that I like to do is with those mouthpieces, I like to use like some dense foam, kind of like a mattress foam or packaging material foam that you can tear into a little chunk and kind of stuff your mouth call in to give you a little bit of more nasal, more natural tone. And I'm going to give you an example. Here's the call without foam. Pretty loud call. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to stuff it with foam. More nasally. It almost seems like it's a filtered sound, more natural sound. And that's what I like to do. A lot of these big tubes, and a lot of people always ask me, what is your favorite company? What is your favorite tool? I got to be honest with you. I'm neutral on elk calls. I love all these guys out there. They're doing a super job. Every company has a great call. I like Rocky Mountain. I like Primo's. I like Wayne Carlton. His new native version of calls, are great calls as well. Abe and Sons, I got to be honest with you, he's one of the original guys that came up with these mouthpieces on these bugle tubes, and it seemed like the whole industry just fell right in towards that. And, I like his calls. They produce, they're probably not the most user-friendly call to get the sounds that you want, but once you figure it out, boy, you can make some real natural sounds. No different than I think one of the easiest mouthpiece type of calls out there is the Primos, the blued reed, and he makes like 5 different bugle tubes, and I think all their mouthpieces with a blue reed are pretty much the same mold there. So you know what, it's a difference. I guess you just need to figure out what size of bugle tube do I have, but I strongly recommend a large bugle tube and then a smaller one just to make different sounds. I'll tell you one that probably it's been out there for about 6-7 years, and it's a Fox Pro Dillon call. Their elk bugle, and it has a a baffle that you can have a check valve on it. You can open and close it. I tell you what, I use this call. I love it, man, especially out in the real woods. You can vary your tones, and I'll give you an example with a bugle tube right here. You know, you can throw your sounds either behind you or in front of you by just closing and opening that valve on that bugle tube. But I got to be honest with you, I love calls. Every time I hear of someone coming out with one, I want to get my hands on it. In fact, this year I just saw the Game Changer call that came out, and I went ahead and grabbed one. In fact, I'm going to blow a bugle with it. If you hold it in your hand, Game Changer, you can check it out online. You know, it sounds a little bit different. It's a small call, and you can blow it on one end or the other. I'll blow it on the other end now. You know, so I think the key thing is to have an assortment of calls where you can make different, you know, tones, different high pitch, low pitch, sounding different from the average hunters that are out there. I think that is key, especially on public land. I just can't say enough. I love calls. I just want to thank the industry and all these companies for doing the outstanding job that they're doing now and making them very user-friendly for people to just pick them up and work with them. Stephen, you have any questions else on these calls?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with those calls in mind and everything, where would you say it's important for a beginner to master which one? So are they going to want to go towards more the cow call first, or are they going to want to work towards that bugle first? Because one might get them farther than the other. And if they've got a hunt, you know, it's we're recording this here in July, end of July. If they've got a hunt in September and they're going, oh, it's crunch time, what should they be working on the most?
Absolutely. You know what? I would definitely go pick up a very simple hoochie mama. Real simple call. And then I would definitely pick up a diaphragm. I strongly recommend a single reed diaphragm. You can make cow calls, cap calls with them, plus simple bugles, okay? But I would definitely keep it simple. But then also, go out there and buy you one of these bugle tubes with a mouthpiece on them. You know, I like, again, the Abe and Sons. I like the Primos, great mouth calls. I know Rocky Jacobson also makes one that it has like a green little latex thing around it that you can kind of bite onto. And what that does is it puts pressure on his diaphragm that's embedded into his mouth call there. That's a pretty simple call. My daughters actually used that and that's been already about 10 years out. They were at a elk calling contest on the drive up there. I said, here, practice with this one. We got her fine-tuned, and she won an elk calling contest with that Rocky Jacobson call. So anybody can use them. I know that also Wayne Carlton makes the Mac Daddy bugle tube, and that one has a thumb where you can put some pressure on this thumb valve, and you just press on it and get as high pitch as you want or low pitch. It's pretty easy to use. The instructions nowadays that comes with all these calls are pretty easy, but better yet, get on YouTube and they'll show you how to work these calls.
Yep.
One awesome call that I can't help but not mention him, and I almost feel guilty if I don't, was the ELK call. That company's been around for a lot of years. That one there produces some super high-pitched bugles. I like to have a high pitch right from the get-go and then get into your lower, part of your bugle. And a lot of those lower tones, when you're making, calls, comes from your natural voice, your throat. As I'm blowing on that, you of course do your lip bowing, and then you try to get fancy, kind of like in a contest, but you don't really need those fancy calls with the long extended everything. You just need a basic bugle. This right here is probably the bugle that I use more in the woods to suck in a bull, because I don't want to sound like a massive bull out in the woods, especially when I'm challenging an elk. I want to just kind of bark at him and challenge him, kind of like a little Chihuahua dog, just getting on his nerves, where eventually he's going to turn on and want to come and beat me up, but here's a simple bugle. Real simple. Gosh, that right there will locate, plus it'll challenge a bull as well. Mm-hmm. One thing when you're challenging a bull, Stephen, it's important that when he bugles, I like to cut him off. Right when he's starting to bugle, right in the middle of his bugle, man, I'll rip right into him, that little bugle, man, and it seems to really fire him up, when you do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anything else on basic calls, Stephen?
Yeah,
what do you want to know?
So we buy these calls, and something that I realized is my first several ones that I have now are definitely changing in tone and everything. How long do you suggest before we need to get a new elk diaphragm?
Good question. You know what? Diaphragms, the latexes have improved, boy. But you know what? As soon as I buy a diaphragm, I stick it in my mouth. I leave it in my mouth for minimum 20, 30 minutes. You're going to see that latex is going to get softer the more you use it. Mm-hmm. Okay? I want a diaphragm that'll last me all day long. And, I don't like them to get too soft, because then it's hard to get your sounds that you want when you need them. So I want to walk around in the woods, with my diaphragm, at least, 3-4 hours at a time. And I want that diaphragm to be solid. One thing that I do recommend is, once you're done with your diaphragm, you can put them in the fridge, put them in a plastic. You might want to rinse them off, put them in a plastic, put them in your refrigerator, once the season is over. But, I do like that native call that Wayne Carlton just came up with, that Rip It. I know you're selling some custom calls. You hooked me up with one of those calls at the seminar the other day in Arizona. Yeah. And I tell you, it's working well. In fact, I have that one going on this, as we speak right now. But again, the cool thing that I like about that is the latex that they're using. Mm-hmm. You're going to notice that some latexes get too soft right away. They sound great the first 10, 15 minutes, when you're blowing on them, but they soften up after that, and then they don't work as well. So that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about having the benefit of having multiple types of cow calls, and the benefit to that is just trying to sound, multifaceted, make it sound like there's a group of cows over there, whether they're in heat or just talking to each other. But basically you want to draw that bull in and sound like a bunch of different types of cows that are kind of grouped over here, that hopefully maybe he can come and steal them. Speaking of moments of bugling though, sounding like a big bull versus a little bull, what does that do for you, and what does it do for the bull that you're calling to?
Okay, and I got to be honest with you, I like to throw out a mean, gnarly bugle, but I don't do that as often, because I do when the bulls are quiet. You're going to see out September 1 elk hunting, the bulls aren't going to be talking as vocal as they get going and come around September 16th, to the 20th. They're cranking on their own. Mm-hmm. So you got to entice them. And but I always start out slow. I like to, of course, when I get in, I like to think smarter and not work as harder, so I like to get in early in the game, obviously doing my scouting, but I like to walk in at dark, and I like to get up on top and be above the elk before, because elk are creatures that they like the riparian zones, they like these wet zones, they like to graze all night, they breed all night, and as soon as the first vehicle out in the pasture drives through, or it's getting close to, let's say 30 minutes before sunup, those elk start moving up, and they want to go in bed up on the north sides of, the slope or on a bench or whatnot, just to get away basically from traffic, people. And so I like to get up early, be on top. Okay. When I get up there, I like to start out really slow with some cow calls. Maybe a cow, calf combination, real slow calling. Nothing loud. Something like this right here. The reason why I like to start out slow like that, Stephen, is there may be some elk already within 150, 200 yards from where you're at. And that might stimulate them to either give you a quick chuckle or just maybe even a small bugle. Something not super excited, but hey, I'm over here. They're going to give up their location. So I like to start out slow with that. And then, if I don't hear anything with that, I'll do my cow, calf combination, and then I'll hit them with a small little bugle. Nothing fancy, just something real slow, again, starting out slow, because there's probably going to be an elk in the area, and if there is, they're going to either respond one way or the other. Now, this is early season elk hunting, and I would do the same thing even on a mid-October rifle bull hunt as well. My thing is, right now, my goal is just to locate an elk for the morning, okay? So if I don't hear anything at that point, then I like to start picking things up a little bit. I'll start covering some ground. Normally, I like to use ridge lines. Again, thinking smarter and working, not harder. I like to park like an ATV, maybe 2 miles, 3 miles down off of this ridge, and then I'll drive my pickup truck and do a circle if anything. But I like to work these ridge lines and work my way to another vehicle or get picked up. A lot of times I'll have my buddy pick us up, maybe 5 miles down the ridge. But my job is to stimulate and to entice a bull to give up his location. So if I start out slow, like I just demonstrated, then I'll move it into a little bit more aggressive. And that's where I need 2 bugle tubes, like I talked a while ago. You need 2. One, it's real loud. And I'll answer that bugle. Sound like a different bull. And then answer him back with this mean bull. You're trying to create conversation. Now, the cool thing about that is you're probably going to be with your hunting buddy, the shooter, and obviously I'm right now the caller. So I always tell the shooter, hey, you know what? Hang back about 10 yards from me when I'm doing this. It's important for you to do that because my ears are ringing right here. The sound is all right here on top of my head. I need you behind me because you might hear a bull that's bugling, and you're going to probably pinpoint his direction a lot easier than I am while I'm working my calls. So team calling or team work is extremely important. Now, I was getting ready to say team calling. If you have another friend or a buddy that's also going to be calling, man, it's so much easier to argue back and forth because he can cut my bugle off and I'll cut his off. I'll chuckle at him. He'll chuckle back at me, showing emotion. Our job right now is to entice a bull to give up his location, trying to figure out what are we going to do to suck this bull in. Now, that's the bugling back and forth. Gosh, when you have another person with you as well, gosh, you can answer each other, stay 10 yards behind each other, and he calls to the right, I call to the left. We're just, just have elk conversation. And I will tell you one thing. If there's elk in the area, you're going to stimulate them. They're going to give up their location. Steven, you with me?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And that's perfect for me too, because in September I'll be hunting there will be a total of 3 of us. 2 of us have tags and the other person's just along to help pack out and then do any of those extra calls. I think we're going to get him some of the hoochie mamas and maybe get him a diaphragm too, see if he can work that up quick enough to be able to do some calls with that as well.
You know, and Stephen, and you said the hoochie mama. The key thing also with that hoochie mama is that I like to extend the nose on it all the way out.
Okay.
But the other thing to do with that call is you can put it also underneath your armpit, you know, or out in the open. That way you have, again, a different tone, you know, kind of sounding like 2 cows rather than 1.
Yeah.
But, yeah, cool call.
Yeah, absolutely. Walk us through what are some of the best ways that we can hone in our skills in specific to calling. So the right tones down for bugles. You know, there's obviously those like couple steps of high notes that we're hitting. Also chuckles. That's one thing that me personally, this is just to scratch my own itch, but I've got the chuckling down, but I'm having problems with getting some of those deep guttural sounds. And then so the bugles, the chuckle, and then the lip ball.
Bugles, the chuckles. Okay. All right. Well, a lot of it, obviously, I like using a diaphragm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would definitely try to master using that diaphragm. In fact, I'm going to call right now and make a simple bugle without a tube.
Okay.
You know, just a simple bugle. That's without a tube. Mm-hmm. And I tried not to put any of my voice into it. Okay. And that's what's going to put more voice into it. I'm going to pull out that diaphragm out of my mouth, and I'm just going to make the sounds that I'm going to make with my voice. That's my natural voice coming when I'm making this bugle. You know, you want to use a lot of throat, you know, natural sound,
mm-hmm.
and your throat's going to sound different than mine, but you got to show emotion when you're doing it, Steve. Now, the other thing that's critical is your lips. Of course, obviously, when you talk, your lips control that volume that's coming out. Very important. And one thing that I don't care for are these tight, small reservoirs where your mouth goes into.
Mm-hmm.
I like the larger ones better because that's where you can flutter your lips inside the tube and make them vibrate to give you that vowel sound that you were talking about.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't have room for your lips to flutter, it makes it more difficult, and I don't think you'll really ever get it.
Mm-hmm.
So you do need that.
Okay.
But key thing, get you a diaphragm that you can go to that high pitch right from the get-go. I like that high pitch because your low tones, your natural throaty sounds are what's going to help give you that bugle combination, you know, and you know, you want to use your throat, your lungs, man. Your lungs take it. You know, that you gotta just show emotion when you're doing it. If not, you'll never sound like a real elk. You know, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I suggest too that really helped me understand a lot was just some really up close videos that I've seen just around social media and stuff of elk, a bull elk specifically bugling. If you can get a high definition video where they're really zoomed in and like his head and his face are taking up most of the frame, you can see how they throw their lips out. Their lips are almost like split at the front, and you can see how they form their lips, and then you can especially see if you watch their stomach and the way they flex their diaphragm or their basically like their sternum and stuff, you can see what they're doing. And so basically what I've really tried to do is just imitate that across the board for me when I'm doing it, and it's helped me get pretty close. So
absolutely. You know, and again, Stephen, I'm going to go back to basics. Mm-hmm. Do you need a fancy bugle? No.
Right.
But you need a basic bugle with some emotion in it. You've got to have a little bit of throat in there.
Yeah.
Ooh, you know, just doing that simple little,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, you know, just like this. You know, that just shows you a little bit of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm not real big, but buddy, you know what? If you want to bugle at me and yell at me, well, I'm going to yell at you back, you know, and it's kind of, you know, playing calm over here on my end, and he's getting more angry. And then when you cut him off in the middle of his bugle, that's going to entice him even more and really upset him. And more than likely, he's going to come and challenge you because he looks at you like a wimpy little bull, but you've got emotion like, hey, well, come on, bring it on here.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Without going into too much detail, because I'm gonna scenario role play with you here in just a second. Briefly, just cover how are we gonna call in a satellite bull versus a herd bull?
Well, it depends on that. And that's a trick question. You know, and when you go to my seminar, obviously I give you about 11 tools to always look at. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And really, a satellite bull, he's either a lover or a fighter.
Yep.
You know, and what is he doing? And really, what I've got to ask myself first is, what stimulated that bull to give up his location? Was it cow calls? Was it bugle? What was it? Mm-hmm. And if I started him off with cow calls, that's what I'm going to try to stick with, you know, with a cow call. And I learned this, and I got to be honest with you, I've been really fortunate to be involved with 368 elk kills in my lifetime.
Wow.
And if I just look at it, let's say that's only a third of them, I think I've been involved with at least 1,500 setups. Mm-hmm. So I've messed up a lot of times. I've learned a lot. I've learned that with 30 years of elk hunting, I've dissected every scenario. What could I have done? What worked? What was awesome? You know, you mentioned videos a little while ago, and I look at videos all the time. What did they do? You know, when did they draw? What call is he making? You know, when's he ready? And to me, that's really important, you know, to do. Mm-hmm. So, how deep do you want me to go? Satellite?
Sure.
Did he bugle to my cow call? I'll set up with cow call. If he bugled to my bugles, he's a fighter, then I'll stick with my bugling.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect, because I think we'll go ahead and roll into the scenario situations here that I'm going to give, and just kind of how you would approach each situation and handle it. I'm going to give 4 different situations and basically just tell us how you'd approach and maneuver through each one. So we'll go through situation 1. You hike up and out onto an elevated finger early in the morning, just like you were speaking about earlier, and you hear nothing but stillness and quiet filling the canyon in front of you. Maybe it's like that earlier. So our very first tag here is September 13th. I'm hoping they'll be fired up already. But if you're one of those people that is hunting the very beginning of September in another state or across the west here somewhere, and you just hear stillness and quiet filling that canyon, how are you going to get started?
Great question, and that's going to happen here in a few short weeks. So I tell you, again, I start real slow. You know, cow call. Calf call, cow calf. Cows and calves are always vocal year round when they move from, let's say, nighttime into daytime transitions. You know, eating, grazing, they're always talking. So I would still stick with that. See if I can entice the bull to give up his location. Mm-hmm. If it's still quiet, I would do another cow calf with a small little bugle, into that bull part of that finger either. And if that doesn't work, as I'm going up on the right side of the finger, then I'd work my way to the left side of the finger and start calling on the left side as well, doing the same thing till I stimulate something to bugle. Okay, perfect. Let's go to the second scenario here. You approach a football field sized meadow with a marshy wallow in it. There's 15 to 20 cows and a herd bull smack dab in the middle of it. There's fairly thick timber leading up to the meadow itself. What is your approach? All right. Well, first off, I know what kind of bull. He's a nice bull. I think he's a shooter.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. I've got a hunter. And really we can take that scenario with an early season, mid-season, late season scenario. Okay. So early season, you know what? They're not talking. They're not very vocal. The herd's there. I would probably turn that into more of a spot and stock type of encounter. I tell you one thing, if you don't wear a hex suit, you are missing out, because this is going to help that sixth sense that they sense on people that don't wear hex suits. So you're spotting and stalking. That's what I'm going to turn it into. Yeah. I'm probably not going to make a lot of calls, especially if I know that there's cover that can get me close to get me a shot. I'll probably just spot and stalk them all the way. On the other hand, mid-season, they're bugling, they're talking a little bit more. He's vocal. I may move in a little tighter, a little closer. Is the bull at the water yet? Did they just move in? They're all there. That's when you do maybe a little bit of call. If I'm going to call at all, when I can see the elk, I would start out very, very slow. Maybe a calf call, just. Because what happens when there's a herd like that already at the water, they hear other elk. My experience has been that they're going to look over in your direction. That's not natural. And a lot of times they'll booger on out. Yeah. So I think even mid-season, late, I'd probably move in for a stock and turn it into that scenario.
Okay.
If let's say you run out of cover, they're still there. You can't move in. You're bow hunting. I would let them I'd sit tight, maybe even stay my distance. And if you know that, oh man, it's probably still 90 yards of open. There's no way I can close in on him. Sit back, make sure your wind's still right, and let them go off, do their natural thing. Let them take off to wherever they were going to go. And on the other hand, you have another option. Leave them alone, and maybe this meadow that you're talking about is away from roads and human activity. Might be a great place to come back in the next day and you set up a ground blind and then kill this bull.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, number 3. You spot a large herd of elk and even see the herd bull, but he's clearly unobtainable. So your next option is to resort to finding those orbiting satellite bulls, or gator bulls as you call them sometimes, and a few are vocal, but there's also a few of those gator bulls hovering around in the timber. How do you go about balancing movement and calling sequence, and what calls are you going to use?
Okay, and I've been in that one before, and one of the things that I have experienced, normally in a setup like that, satellite bulls, this was pretty open country, a lot of cedars, and but we were definitely, the bulls were there. Gosh, there had to have been at least 30, 40 cows. There was 6 satellite bulls around this one bull. And so what do we do? I tell you what, we didn't waste any time. We tried to close in. We moved in. I did have a Wayne Carlton, a decoy with us. And it was pretty open that we couldn't move in any closer. There was probably about 100 yards to where the tree line was at, where the herd bull had his cows bedded there already. But he was just chasing the satellite bulls. And I'm not kidding you. They were in the, east of him, west, north, south. They were trying to penetrate his cows, and he was just running around chasing them off. Right. What do we do? I said, gosh, Jeff, let's close in, buddy. Let's just keep moving in. We finally ran out of cover. We popped out that decoy, and we just stuck right behind it and kept closing in. Unfortunately, what happened with that scenario was the wind shifted and smelled us, and gosh, they were off. Yeah. But talk about it. One of the best mornings I've ever had out in the woods, man, was that just to see how the elk were responding to that herd bull and challenging him was incredible.
I'm curious, because I have a different brand, but I also have one of those cow elk decoys, and I'll be using that for sure. how bold are you when you use that to walking straight? I mean, do you just literally just walk at a mild pace straight up to them? Or are you kind of weaving in and out of trees? What's your approach on that?
That's a great question. And I tell you what, I do it just like when I hunt antelope out in the open.
Okay.
And I've used the Montana decoys as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I never like to just move dead on straight beeline to the elk.
Okay.
I like to just kind of work my way around them, but close in.
Yeah.
You know, kind of skirt them in a little bit. Now, the thing is that if they're not really paying attention, then I try to move in as quickly as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But then as soon as they get their head or they're looking in my direction, I'll just drop and freeze and stay there, till they stop looking at you, and then keep closing in, working it like that. No different than antelope hunting. For antelope hunting, you can't really beat a moo cow decoy.
Yeah.
I'll throw that one in. Gosh,
Yeah.
I love antelope hunting, spot and stock.
I'm excited to use these decoys. I bought a combo. It's a mule deer doe and a cow elk combo. So I'll be using both of those this winter and this fall. But also, too, for those that are going to use them, I heard one of the owners of the company messaged me, and he said what he likes to do is when they all stop and stare at you and they're assessing your situation, he said reach up, and I don't know if they all do it, but mine do. You can flick the ear and just flick it with your finger, and it'll give that lifelike movement. And he said they all just go back to being completely normal, and he said just keep on walking. So I guess he said it's all about body language, and when they see you standing there tense, they tend to stay a little tense longer. So he'll just reach up, flick that ear, make it kind of flicker back and forth, and then he said they just kind of go about their way.
Absolutely. Now, let me tell you one thing that I have done before also is that when I'm closing in that open country again,
Mm-hmm.
what I like to do is the bull was looking in your direction. He had you pegged. You didn't move. Then he went back to either eating or walking or whatever. I like to sometimes just drop and lay down with the decoy.
Okay.
And then they'll look and kind of catch your attention. What the heck happened to that cow that I was just seeing a little while ago?
Now you're talking about face down to where he can't see the cow
face
anymore?
down where he can't see you. Let's say there was a nice little bush right there.
Yep.
You just lay down right there, and then I'll start cow calling.
Okay.
Now he's like, whoa, I just saw a cow. You're creating curiosity now. What the heck happened? He's going to come closer. I will guarantee you that.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a video on the White Mountain Apache there in a reservation there in Arizona.
Yep.
And boy, I did that with one bull. It was amazing. I could not get rid of that bull. He just hung around because he knew there was a cow there.
Yeah.
And boy, he almost stepped on me. He came in so close.
That's funny because it's kind of turning the tables on them. So often these animals, we'll see one coming in, moving around, and then they'll just, up and disappear. And we're wondering where the heck they went. And so it's kind of funny to turn the tables on them and do the same thing.
Definitely. Now, the key thing, always remember, this is great for bow hunting, muzzleloader, rifle hunting, decoys. I don't even mess with them at all.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, there's no reason to. You got a little bit more range and everything. So.
Right.
This last one is kind of a two-part. It's like a what-if scenario. So I'll give you the question, and then I'll give you a response and a B response here. So
Okay.
Number 4, you climbed up a rocky knoll way before sunrise and to glass after hearing bugles in the dark. You see a satellite bull just under a half a mile away with no cows nearby. First off, you do a cow call or location bugle to see if he responds. If he bugles, he responds. If he bugles, actually, I'm sorry, go ahead. First off, you cow call or location bugle to see if he responds, is what I meant.
Okay. You know what? I always start off with a soft cow call.
Okay.
That's my go-to right from the get-go. Satellite bull, and I've had this same scenario happen. Let me tell you, in the Gila 15 public land, I get up there, I spot him, I hit the cow call, and here he comes all the way in. Now, if he doesn't respond to the cow call, then I'll hit him with a little bugle to get his attention. Absolutely.
Okay. So here's some kind of extra ones here. I put if you cow call, he turns and beelines it towards you at first, but he hangs up at 400 yards. How do you coax him in the rest of the way, and what sequence of calling do you resort to do that?
Okay, let me tell you this. Obviously, it sounds like I can see the bull and I can see his body language and what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you can see a bull as you're calling him in, which hardly ever happens for me because I'm the caller and I normally back off, depends, 65 to 150 yards on my shooter.
Okay.
But when I can see a bull and he's beelining it towards me, I will just let him keep coming.
Okay.
As soon as he stops and he looks like, where were you? I will hit him with another cow call. And then he'll beeline and continue coming in, if not trotting.
Mm-hmm.
And then if he stops again and you look, hit him again.
Okay.
And that would just keep them coming. Gosh, that is such a great, and especially when they're hot and you can see their body language that they're doing. Gosh, it's awesome. Now, if he stops and you hit your call and he's not coming anymore, whatever, then I'd go 3-4 more calls on him. But normally, if you can see a bull coming to you and you know when to call. The key thing is probably not to call if he's already coming. Once he stops, then hit him.
Yeah.
But if he's coming, let him come. Don't throw any more calls at him. Just let him come.
Sure. He's already made up his mind that he's going over there to check out what's going on.
Yes, sir. Now, last year, October hunt, that's exactly what I did. I actually spotted a bull about 800 yards off, and I went ahead and kept calling at him, and I'd see him, he'd stop, he'd look. I kept throwing some louder. He was pretty far out there. I just kept throwing out as soon as he'd stop, and boy, ended up sucking him all the way to 25 yards. It was awesome.
So back to that scenario, if you climb up the rock, your glass in stuff, you see that satellite bull and you do a location bugle. If he bugles back and he responds aggressively to your location bugle and then starts raking a tree, how would you go about from there?
Oh man, I tell you what, you went to my seminar, I pack horns. I will give him a small little bugle. Something like that, and I will start raking a tree with my horns, man, and talk about game on.
Yeah.
He's going to hear me, and he's going to pick up the tempo a whole lot more. He's either going to stop and rake the tree and get more excited. You keep doing that to him, raking, pop him a little bugle when he bugles. Man, the game is on, man. I'll guarantee you that.
Yep. And then will it still work if we don't carry horns with us to use a fairly large branch or something like that that's nearby that we can at least get that sound going?
Absolutely. Definitely do that. But let me tell you, if you don't have the horns, I like to imitate a bull how he sounds, especially with this little small bugle tube, and each bull has their own characteristic type of bugle. They're different from each other, and I like to imitate him. I had this one bull out in the open like that, and he had a kind of a funny bull. It sounds something like this. He kept bugling like that, so I started doing the same thing right to him. Just try to sound like he sounds, man, and that upsets him, and he's wondering what the heck's going on here. And I mean, now here's the thing, it may take you 15, 20 minutes, but the nice thing is I've got my eyes on him. I know what he's doing. Right. Stimulate him, call back at him, try to get into his head.
Yep, absolutely. If you go to a spot, say any of these scenarios, and you start throwing out your sequences, but you hear absolutely nothing, how long do you give it before you just walk away?
You know what? I don't spend a whole lot of time. Bulls are going to respond, right there. Mm-hmm. I like to get into an elky place. And that's what I mean, elky place or elky saddle, a trail. I can smell the urine I know they crossed on top of this ridge and headed over. I know they're in this vicinity. That's where I like to just keep walking till I hit that. If I'm not hearing anything, I walk, to another 30, 40 yards. I'll throw another cow call and another little cow-calf call combination while I'm walking. And then I'll throw a little bugle. Whoa, answer those cows and calves. Yeah. Nothing mean, nothing fierce, fearful or anything, nothing massive. Just cow call, little bugle. Keep walking, man. Ramos is covering ground. That's what I do. I cover ground, and I may go a quarter mile, still not hear anything. I know, darn it, these elk are here. I know they're here. And I rely on my calls. That's why I have my calls, and I'll just keep covering ground. Finally, I hit a saddle. Gosh, this is September 1, early season, New Mexico, and man, it smells like elk here. In fact, fresh droppings. They were here this morning. The bulls aren't talking. They're not responding. Now what? All right, you know what? It is 9 o'clock already. Perfect. Bulls probably already getting into their bed, if not in their bed already. But I smell elk here. Let's go ahead and set up. I like to put my hunter right there, knock an arrow. Of course, we're wearing our hex suit. We're very alert. Just keep an eye for alligator bulls. I'm going to sit down behind you, probably lay by a log, hold my calls, and start cow-calf combination, throwing a little bugle. And I will do this for 30, 45 minutes from that one hot zone or where the elk have been at. Okay. And I will tell you one thing, if the elk are within quarter mile, they're going to come in and sneak in, but it may take 30, 45 minutes to come in. A lot of times on these early seasons, you're going to have a lot of spikes come in, satellite bulls come in, rag bulls come in, and you know what, but that's elk hunting. You're getting some excitement and activity going on.
Yep. And that's perfect. You kind of alluded to one thing. I opened up for some listener questions, and the guys over at Open Country Optics, they threw out the scenario of it being 10 a.m. and you have a bull bedded with his cows who will call to you from his bed but will not get out of it. What are your tactics?
Oh my gosh, I love when that happens. In fact, I love waking up early and getting after the elk. I just love elk hunting, period, any time of the day. But midday, mid-morning, when you have a bull bedded, a lot of times these bulls won't even bugle at you. They'll just give you a moan bugle. He wants to bugle at you. He's got his cows. He's moaning like that, telling his cows to, don't you talk, don't get up, stay put, we're right here. Don't let those bulls or cows, whatever, get you up and move, just stay put. So that's 10 o'clock. He's bedded. All right, awesome. This is what I do. What I like to do is I like to move in, number one, at least within 150 yards. I don't really like to get any closer than that with the wind. I definitely want to get me the wind, in my favor on a setup like this. But what I like to do is I like to move in, do some cow-calf, real slow again, cow, calf, 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 cow, and then lead into maybe a bugle, a small bugle. To my left, and then I'll throw a bugle to my right. Answer that little bull. Sound like another bull. And you can argue back and forth like that. But let me tell you how you're going to kill this bull. You can kill him doing that right there, but that's going to take longer. Okay. I like to close in, start arguing back and forth, little bull, big bull, big bull, and then I break out with my horns, my rattling horns, and I will start raking a tree, using my two horns together to rake that tree, popping sound, starting up, bugling back and forth. This is where if you have another guy with you that's calling, he can bugle while you're doing this. You can answer him back. You're arguing back and forth. That bull's going to get out of his bed. I will guarantee you he's going to go from his moaning bugling to a full-out bugle. He's going to hear all that action over there, and he's going to just, oh, man, he can't resist. He's excited, man. Now he's pumping it. He's even chuckling at you.
Mm-hmm.
You keep cranking that at him. You know, you keep arguing, you keep rattling your horns, keep it up, keep it going. Whoever's doing the shooter is probably nervous wreck right now. You know, he's got his arrow knocked. He's hearing the other bulls. He's now standing up. He's going to sound even louder as soon as he gets up. He's now walking towards you. You see the bull coming in. The guys are still calling, or you're still calling, rattling, bugling back and forth. And that bull's now at 40 yards. He just walked behind a tree. I come to full draw. PSC bow, 90% let off. He's coming. My bow's up. I'm still holding. Now a minute later, here he is, 18 yards, double lung shot, man. That's what elk hunting is all about, man. Mid-morning activity, midday activity. It doesn't get any better than that right there, man. Let me tell you, I'm excited right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm so pumped. That's perfect. Yeah, I'm sure in some of those scenarios too, because I've found quite a few elk bads and everything, so that might be something that very well I come across. Christian Beps asked on Instagram, can you tell the size of a bull by his bugle?
You know what? No, I don't think you can. Now you can, I've seen little bulls, rag bulls sound real deep-throated type. I've seen some big bulls, in the 350 class sound like smaller bulls. I got to be honest with you. I treat every bull, like the real thing. I got to be honest with you, and I'll tell you this story. I heard a bull sound like this. I said, oh my God, what's a mule doing out here? And I was just kind of like, oh man, all right, it's probably a hunter over here. So we kept walking. All of a sudden, 30 yards, there's a big old 350, 360 class bull just looking at us. Man, I learned that. Treat every bull as if you're going to take them. The only way to size them up is once you see the headgear on them. That's when you decide whether you want to take them or not.
Okay. Well, one last final question for me before you wrap up. If you run into some pressure while you're out there and you've got, for a fact you've got an elk between you and another hunter. Now, how do you go about handling a situation like that, and when do you decide to walk away from that scenario?
Man, that's a tough one, but I got to be honest with you. Out in the woods, I've been in that scenario before, and I had two hunters I was guiding. We were in the Gila, and in fact, Craig Cooper's his name, a great guy up in Silver City. I knew he was there. He beat us to that setup. What did I do? I knew there was a water hole right there as well. And that bull was just cranking to my calls, man. And so what did I do? I let him set up. I set my two guys, downwind. I like to, let me say this. I like my wind to be 50% on my favor and 50% on the elk's favor. And so to my left was downwind. So I set my two hunters because I figured that bull was going to come in. But the hunter, Craig Cooper, was already there. I saw him, and I said, you know what? I'm going to let him sit. I know where he's set up. I'm just going to try to suck this bull in between him and my guys. Whoever gets a shot, we didn't even know what kind of bull we're dealing with anyway. So I thought I'd do a favor to the guy. So anyways, I start calling, and I suck this bull in. 397. Craig double lungs him. What a celebration, man. It was totally awesome. It was so cool. In fact, that bull, he only went like 30 yards when he stuck him, and God, it was really cool. I had another situation, same thing happened to me. You know what? I love calling in elk. If we bag an elk, it's great. It's a celebration, but then the hunt's over and the work begins. So I just like calling in bulls. You know what? Now, on the other hand, if I drive to my plan A, B, or C, and there's a truck already there, I will probably get off and talk to these guys. Hey, are you guys planning on hunting in here? Are you going to walk in? Are you going to go to the right, to the left, east, west? What are you guys planning? And I'll let them kind of call where they want to go. If not, I'll just drive off and find another place to hunt. Bow hunting, it's a great experience. All the stress levels are in town. Leave those there. I don't like to be stressed out there other than just enjoying elk hunting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I know for my hunt, I know there will definitely be pressure. And I just want to make sure that I've got every possible scenario covered as far as, cause I know for a fact we'll be hearing other people calling and stuff like that. So I just wanted to kind of see what options there were as far as trying to battle it out over somebody else as far as calling goes.
You bet.
All right. Well, awesome. Hey, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And guys, listeners, we're going to be doing kind of a mini series here. And just Ralph has been super generous with his time. He's going to help us kind of break down different facets of elk hunting. I know I want to do an episode just about the X factor that you talk about in your seminar. And I'm sure we'll get together and come up with a few other episodes as well. So look forward to talking with you more. And I appreciate your time today. Any closing thoughts?
Absolutely. You know what? Elk hunting is probably the best hunt that you'll ever experience, is being out in the woods. Be versatile. Get educated with your calls, practice, know your limitations, try to figure out as many scenarios as you can, even off of TV, put yourself in there. It's a great experience. And before I leave, I just want to thank the good Lord for giving me the knowledge and the experience to be out in the woods to really bring my experience to you all. If you take away one of my strategies and have success, that just makes me so much graceful to know that you experience that, and it's been helpful to a lot of people out there. I'm excited about getting ready to talk about the X zone, because I strongly believe in that. But everything I talked today, this is how I hunt elk. God bless you. And Stephen, thanks again for having me on today.
Absolutely. Thank you again for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening today. I hope this episode brought you a wealth of knowledge on elk calling. Now go out there and practice. Make sure to grab one of the custom BowhuntingAZ elk diaphragms and tag BowhuntingAZ in a video of you bugling or cow calling. Let's all work together on improving our calls. If you're not already, head on over to Facebook and Instagram and follow us at BowhuntingAZ. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and if you would, smash those 5 stars and leave a little review for the podcast. It'll really help me out. Have a great week, everyone. I'll see you in the next episode.